Okay, I think we are restarted. Okay, let's get back. See, what is more interesting to discuss is let's not get into the older, theories, but rather what I always used to think, what is the difference between, let's say, a procedural programming and the new age AI world? I kind of fascinated by that fact. Basically, if you look at history, right? If you The reason why people learn history is ideally to not to learn history, rather they try to understand the patterns and they try to map it to future. And that way, people who learn history has a better understanding of future is what I always thought. And there is a reason why we should learn history. Similar way, I also feel that we should also learn about the history of technology and look at what is happening in the future. And that is where I dragged you into introducing yourself and in talking about the technology. Now let's get back to the track and maybe discuss about this. Okay, so let's look at when we both started, maybe way back in 2005. You had to be either a front-end engineer or a middleware engineer or a DB guy. These are the only three formats existed, right? Of course, there are other programming things like embedded systems and things like that. But um, I started off as a middleware programmer in C Sharp, and I was never fascinated by the front end. I was mostly fascinated by the middlewares and the system which is the backbone of the front end, right? Front end is where every fancy stuff will come, but I was always fascinated by um the concepts and the architecture of middleware. Like, let's say you put a base class and you implement oops, and then you once you implement oops, you bring some piece of code to reality. That's what fascinated me. Let's talk about procedural for programming. Now let's say somebody who has done that kind of a programming, suddenly if he had to uh, be moved from, let's say, 2010 or 2005 suddenly to 2024, he will get a cultural shock, right? The way we used to program is completely different, and it is going to change. And I wanted to understand from your point of view, let's say somebody who has been doing a Java programming or a traditional C sharp programming or a C++ programming, who worked with OOPs, and if that person has to adapt to an AI world from a developer point of view, what do you think has changed and what all skills that person has to acquire in order to adapt himself to the changing world and also the new way of programming? I mean, let's start there and then we'll get into other discussions.
Yeah, personally, I think at the moment it hasn't changed much because see, we are just using AI or Copilot, or if anybody is using Cursor, the composer agent. All that is helping us is uh, whatever we know about coding, it does also. It helps us code with the same pattern, same exactly the same way, but it's machine coding 70% or 80% of the stuff, and we are just adding 20%. We are using more and more English, and it's really the paradigm has not changed, right? I mean, we are still oops, we are still using the old languages, Python, C sharp, all the object oriented concepts. So in that way, nothing has changed. It's just that we are starting to use more and more AI to help us code the same stuff. Probably the whole thing will change, but for now, at least in my learning phase right now, I don't see any change. I'm just using more AI. I don't know. What do you
Okay.
think? No?
Okay, so that is right. Maybe nothing has changed peripherally, but maybe the way you get help has changed. For example, you have copilots now, and you have Perplexity now to make you understand the concept, and then maybe get a piece of code and put that in, and then it works for that, right? But I'm more looking at it from a solutioning point of view. Like, everybody talks about agentic workflow nowadays, right? You don't have to write implement the complete design patterns for you to create a software now, is what I feel. And imagine you are more and more dependent on these models, and then you have to uh, figure out which is the domain model for you and plug that in and pick the other domain model, maybe multiple domain models together, and maybe create an agentic workflow, and that generates a new workflow. So it is all driving
In
towards
that
a
way,
workflow, right?
everything has changed probably. Like, it's
Correct.
so easy to get in these days. So one of the point I think about is, I was a programmer from 2004 to 2012-ish. Okay, 2000, maybe 8 to 10 years initially I was a programmer. Then I completely left that, coding. I mean, last 10 years I never had done any coding. Okay, so I wanted to get back to it. So it was so easy to get back to coding, because of all these tools. Well, for example, what I did was I just installed this new IDE cursor. Okay, opened the composer and asked it, can you create me a hello world website in, well, what's the latest in the market right now? It said, okay, React, Next.js. I said, let's go with React because it's the most popular. Create me a hello world website in React. You just select agent in the cursor composer. It does everything. It downloads node, installs it on my PC. It does the whole installation. It does the website, JSX file creation. All we have to do is finally open the local host and see the hello world in action. Okay, so uh, in the old days, it would have taken me maybe a week or two to get to this phase. Okay, understand the packages, set up. This is within an hour, I'm ready, good to go. I can also improve this website with whatever I want, calling an OpenAI API. Everything is much so your idea to execution is much, much faster. Don't know really about the production systems, but at least a POC, idea to POC is so stunningly fast.
Great. Now, let's look at it from an other aspect of, let's say, a standard workflow for a software development has been like you program in any language, you package it as a Docker, just deploy it on a Kubernetes. These are the de facto standards for an enterprise grade software. I'm talking about enterprise grade software. I've seen a lot of commercial applications like this, let's say, the aeroplane companies, or maybe they have applications and they have used gimmicky Gen AI chatbots to grab your attention. But if you interact with that agent, you are not finding much help of that. So that's what I find most of the applications are with. The only real AI application which has changed my personal world has been Perplexity, and it has changed the way I search, the way I shop, the way I learn anything, the way I create a document, everything has changed because of Perplexity. So I feel those kind of applications has to be more and more for a day-to-day use cases for us to uh, change the world way we develop software, right? For example, let's look at an Adobe Photoshop now, right? It has maybe 1,000 uh, of menu items and sub menu items, and a lot of it is hidden. And the skill set of somebody knowing Photoshop is ideally knowing all these menu items and creatively understanding how to layer these things and then create something on that, right? Now, with something like every interaction, like it's about human computer interaction, right? The HCI has completely changed to a native language format now. I feel that way of development will change the way softwares are developed, right? For example, I don't think these kind of submenu layouts will exist in next maybe 5 years or 3 years. It would be mostly conversational. It is all about abstracting the complexity of a software into extremely simplistic, natural language format. Now, from that angle, if you look at it, everything becoming conversational, everything you're typing or a voice or a vision, everything is related to this, right? What would be a programmer's role in an AI world, right? Will he be somebody who will go to a shop, picks up few agents, puts things together, and submits it as a new workflow? What will be valuable in future? For example, when I started off, if you are a Java expert, you are valued, right? And people don't want to switch from a Java expertise to learning other languages because they feel it will diminish their value in the market. That's one way to look at it. And then came a generalist. I count myself as a generalist because I went ahead and learned multiple other languages, multiple systems. I never studied. I don't consider myself as a like an expert into one thing, rather a generalist who knows a little bit of everything, which helped me in the profile that is suited for me. I don't get into a kind of a R&D for a software development, which does a software enterprise software development deeply. Rather, I got into a system level stuff over the years. Now, I am more and more confused about like what will be a general programmer's role in, let's say, next 5 years. Will
Yeah.
programmers exist, or will only solution architects exist, or will there be some kind of a super one person who knows about few workflows and then that person only exists? Or is it somebody who creatively creates new workflows, right? That is what valued. Is what valued?
Yeah,
What
it's a
is going to be
topic.
valued?
Yeah, it's a big topic. Everyone is talking about these days, especially after the O3 announcement on 20th December. So everyone is talking about what will happen to programmers or knowledge workers in general. The key reason of this discussion is, you know, it's O3 benchmark shows it's better than 99.99% of all developers in the world, which is, there is a coding benchmark. I forgot the name of it. Okay. 3000 is the top score at the moment. The world's best programmer has scored 3000 in that benchmark. And O3 scored 2723 or something like that, 2723 points, which is just better than, there is only from the top guy to O3 175 people, better than O3 right now. Okay, let's say when O3 really comes out or in another few months, it'll be the best programmer in the world, no doubt. So if it is the best programmer in the world, it can solve any complex problems, at least tasks and a set of instructions, some functions. It can write better than any human. So then it really asks the question, what's the point of having human programmers? It'll be cheaper, for sure. It'll be much cheaper. You saw Devin. Devin is $500 per month. Anybody can recruit Devin to their team, paying 500, which is much cheaper than a lot of software engineers in the world. It'll only get cheaper and cheaper. So if it is $10 for a programmer, even I'm thinking, what's the point of having a programmer in the future? There is a counter argument saying when it becomes so easy, so cheap, there will be a lot of software in the world, much, much more. Okay. The magnitude, orders of magnitude, more softwares, better features, better programmers, but still all of them can be covered by compute and such kind of amazing coding tools. So this needs a lot of, thinking. Yeah, I don't know if this profession as it is will exist. Like, it's in everyone's minds.
That's pretty fascinating. And I was looking at another statistics of how Stack Overflow traffic has been reducing over last 2 years. But it is another way to look at it, right? For example, Stack Overflow has been flooded with questions and answers over, let's say, last 20 years, 25 years, right? And they have a database of question answers which the model has trained on, which is great. And now nobody is going to go to Stack Overflow to submit a question or to submit an answer because AI is giving them the answer, which is great. But what we are forgetting is there will be new and new scenarios where we do not have answers. where there'll be new and new scenarios where we want to ask questions and nobody's gonna give you answers.
Yeah.
That is
You need
when,
infinite data, like as Ilya said in the
yeah,
NeurIPS conference, he said, data is the fossil fuel of AI, which means
correct.
it's about to finish, okay, or
Yes.
running out. So exactly what you're saying about this one. But
So
now,
my
yeah,
thought was, now there'll be a delta knowledge which model don't know, which humans don't know, and who's gonna fill that gap of the delta data, right? That is also something which we'll have to look at, because the way the retraining is happening currently, the way 40 billion parameters and all that models existing, it's great, but it's a limited knowledge on the internet which they have right now. I'm wondering, uh, first question is ideally how do we fill that gap of delta, this thing? Will there be new software system to fill that gap? That's one thing. Second is whether the current model of learning for the models, is it right, or will there be something new which is coming in? Uh, Something like a background task which will be always running, who always observing the world through cameras and feedings, and maybe it'll collect everything and then maybe give us answers to whatever we ask. So these are the two questions which always runs in my mind when we think
I had
about
the same
future.
doubts. I had the same doubts. Also listening to a lot of podcasts and reading stuff in Twitter and here and there. It's really what I was also looking for is how, see, humans are creative. They can solve new problems. They can they can creatively build new things. And AI model right now is it's a pre-trained world knowledge. Okay, it doesn't have access to anything outside it unless you give it through RAG, or you can give it additional enterprise or your own private knowledge. That's fine. It can go through, but it cannot invent anything new. So it cannot win a Nobel Prize by in chemistry or physics yet. So it's not able to go to a new. It knows only what we teach it so far. But that paradigm completely changed with the reasoning model. Okay. So there is this benchmark called ARC, ARC. It's a French guy, Francois Chollet. So who's behind this benchmark? This benchmark is really testing models' capability on inventing something new or solving problems it doesn't know yet. It's not in training data. It's so I don't know much about it, but at least this benchmark was only 10% or even 5% solved so far. But O1 and O3 solved it 25%, or I think 85%. We have to check the data. I think it solved till 85%. What it means is, in the new paradigm from O1 to O3 reasoning, uh, you don't need this, let's say, Stack Overflow data, existing data. It needs the new thought streams, which means these thinking models. When you ask a question, it thinks for long, right? It takes the problem, divides into multi steps, go through each steps. Okay, consider it as chain of thought. It's each step is a thought stream, like in our minds. Okay, and when it answers, it combines all of them and gives the answer to the user. So now OpenAI, these guys have this additional training data, which is kind of a synthetic data of thought streams of all millions of users. Okay, each question and all the thought streams and what worked well. No, it's almost like human brain, where which thought stream worked well rather than the old pre-trained model weights. So very different paradigm. So I think, to answer your question, what happens that in between space, who will fill it? I think these kind of thought streams is very well fit to fill that gap. It's millions
Okay.
of human beings questions and thought streams is new training data. This is called the inference time compute, the new type of training,
So,
inference time training. I think it's called time training. Yeah.
so that also brings in another interesting fact, that you need critical thinkers in the world to ask the right question for it to be having the right flow, right?
Yeah.
So the 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 foundational skill of being a critical thinker is still there. Then maybe, let's say, in future
There
there
for the
is only,
moment. Yeah.
yeah. So it is never going to go out of fashion. It's not going to be. I remember, I don't know if it was Wall-E or some movie where humans are so fat and they're sitting on a giant spaceship and they're, eating chips and the robots are doing all the work. I don't think that is going to be the future. I would, uh, you know, want it to be better than that. And it has to be something where we have to deeply think about the foundational problems of the world rather than the older way of looking at it, how my software works, right? I think if AI is helping us to remove the complications of building a software and helping us to focus more and more on deep thinking, then I think we will have better solutions coming out. That's how one way to look at it. I want to know what you think about this.
I think so. That's right. Because so we are doing, firefighting every day these days when doing software development, right? You
Correct.
know, people are really wasting time on, so many unproductive things while coding. But yeah, if we can really focus on problem solving and creatively building something new, where all these low-level activities are taken care by AI, I think there is, yeah, it's much more valuable. I mean, when you look at, yeah, from a
Yeah,
first look, this is this sounds more valuable than the other. Yes.
correct, correct. Um, so now there's another question, right? Like, what do you fund? Like, if you want to start a company now, what is the idea that you wanted to fund for? Now everybody says, I want to start an AI company. Now AI it's a generic term, it's a broader term, right? And what I want to start with AI? Nobody has an answer for that. So I want to know, if you had to start something today, and if you have given a chance of starting something new, what would you build, and where will you put your energy on? I want to know that from you.
See, I so this is one guy I follow in Twitter called Level CO. Okay, his name is Peter Levels, I believe. Okay, a Dutch guy who's a, you know, he builds one person. I mean, it's just him. Okay, he has 10 or 20 startups all running successfully. He publish the whole financials with the whole code and what he does, so I'm following him from pre-AI era, but when we switch to the AI era, he has a lot of AI startups as well, two, three really good ones. The photoai.com, Interior AI, there are a few famous ones. But the whole point is now a single person can run a startup, okay? Possibly without VCs. This is what the level CEO example shows, and make a lot of money. I mean, there is this quote even by Sam Altman a while ago. He said the future will be 1% billion-dollar companies. Okay, this is sure. You can get agents to code for you. You just need to have the idea. You can get a lot of help from AI and build really huge startups, unicorns with single person. I mean, I think this is where the world is going to. If you ask me what I would start, I would start with the problems I face, okay, in daily life. What the problems I see is important for, people around me, or, for the world, or the problems I face in the existing software. I will try to do something much faster using agents, much cheaper as well, and launch it myself, so something like that. Small number of very small team, but really big companies like with which has thousands of people right now as employees.
Hmm. Interesting. So I think we are almost towards the end of the session. So uh, see, we just started talking about AI and we have not even started defining what is AI, or maybe did not even started talking about much of AI, right? We only talk about implications of AI. What do you think of AI? Those kind of stuff. So that itself took 1 hour of our time.
Yeah, we are just talking about what's in our mind right now. You
Correct.
know,
Yeah. So I think we need to have further sessions, maybe invite more people into the sessions and talk a little bit more from a different perspectives. If you bring in people from different walks of life who are attached to technology, get their perspective on this. So, and then this will be an amalgamation of all of the perspective, and we'll may touch upon truth somewhere, is what I feel. So we'll strive to do that in further sessions. And this is pretty much very first talking session for us. And I would like to thank you for taking this initiative on a January 1st. Um, so let's see where it goes. And if you have any words towards the end, forum is yours.
no, it has been great. What I think is last week I was on a polar expedition. Okay, first of its kind for me. Okay, 1 week, and we had a polar guide with us, and he has never heard of ChatGPT or any of this what we are talking about. Okay, so when the world changes, I mean, it's going to change, I believe, pretty fast. You know, people should be aware about it, and I think we can spread the word. I mean, at least this is one goal we can keep: spread the word to everyone that what's changing, what will be impacted. For sure, there will be some impact, so we can spread the word. Good initiative and good talk.
Okay, so that brings the beginning of our sessions. And what I would like to think of is, this is what we call as, the initiative name itself is entropy. You know, it's a chaotic world, and we are trying to find order. And from order, again, the chaos will begin. So it's a cycle. So we are trying to find the truth in the cycle somewhere. So until next time, so it's goodbye and have a nice day to all of you. Bye.
Bye bye.